Thank you for joining us on Spot Radio. I'm your host, Matt Danley, bringing you guys the NFC playoff kickoff here for ProFootballSpot.com. We got a nice panel tonight. Luke Puglaz, AFC West Division Manager, Jake Mackey, journalist for the Patriots, and Austin Bilal, uh, journalist for the Vikings. We're going to go through our six picks for the NFC starting now, and we're going to tell you what we like in each game. Basically, try to give you a good idea of what you can expect to see this weekend in the playoff battles. Luke, I'm going to bring you in first, and mainly because I want to see for our first Saturday game. Do you think that the Panthers can do anything against the Cardinals' offense and vice versa? The Panthers' defense has looked pretty stout recently, and I'm not so sure that Arizona's got the offensive firepower to get past them in the first in the wild card round. Yourself?
Effectively, it comes down to Ryan Lindley. He hasn't looked too great in his first couple starts. Running game, Andre Ellington injured. It's down to Kerwin Williams, who has looked good at times, but again, this is a gentleman named Kerwin Williams. So take that as you may. Lindley is the starting quarterback because of injuries to Drew Stanton and Carson Palmer. Against that Carolina defense that was top 5 in so many categories last year, they've struggled a little bit this season, but they're still a pretty steady matchup. I think what's to me is going to be interesting is the other side of the ball. Cam Newton has played pretty well this season, up and down a bit. Obviously, the car accident we all know, but it's really the Arizona Cardinals defense that has stood out. Just want to throw a couple numbers at you real quick. Over the
Right.
last 3 games for Cam Newton, he's played New Orleans, Cleveland, and Atlanta. He's averaging 181 yards per game through the air and 66 himself on the ground. So not exactly setting the world on fire, but
Right.
in those 3 games, he's accounted for 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and his team has won by an average of 22 points. So in the box score, he may not be getting it done, but he's getting it done where it counts with the wins. That defense,
Yeah, that,
though, yeah, it's it's something
that's a hard
else.
explanation. That's hard to go against numbers don't lie because they're definitely lying on that.
Well, they're half lying, half not, because on the one hand you have the complete failure to produce the yards, but 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, that's pretty steady. And I should note 5 of those touchdowns through the air. He ran 3 of them in on the ground himself.
Hmm.
Um, on the other hand, the Cardinals defense, I'm on record as saying it's my favorite defense in the league. Todd Bowles is a fantastic defensive coordinator. He should be a
Hmm.
lead head coach um, candidate for most teams in the league. They're aggressive, they blitz, great talent there. I love that defense. I got to go Arizona.
Yeah. I'm kind of torn on this, and I definitely want to get everybody's opinion on this game first. Austin, I'm gonna bring you in next. What are your thoughts on the on this game on the Arizona and Arizona and Carolina?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I watched the Niners game last week, and Ryan Lindley didn't look too terrible, but that was against a Niners team that was hurting, that missing Chris Borland, missing multiple guys on the defensive side of the ball, and he made some plays and he threw a few touchdowns, but I don't see that happening much against the Carolina Panthers. They've played really tough. They shut down Matt Ryan. They shut down that Atlanta Falcons offense, which is pretty good. We saw them play against the Packers and have some success on that Monday night game a few weeks back. But I don't expect it to be as close as people think. Carolina's got to go, or excuse me, Arizona's got to go on the road to Carolina, and I expect Cam Newton to have a good game. That Arizona Cardinals defense, while they blitz and they have all those A gap pressures and different concepts they use, Marshawn Lynch ran for a bunch of yards against them. Uh, I know Russell Wilson did too. He had that big 50-yard run in that Sunday night game. So I expect Jonathan Stewart. I expect Cam Newton and now a healthy Angelo Williams to come into the game and run the ball. They're not really going to pass the ball too much. I don't expect them to put the game on Cam Newton's back or on his arm. So I'm expecting Carolina to come out with the win.
I agree. I expect them to be very patient in this game, knowing, obviously on the other side of the coin that the Cardinals haven't got a whole lot to work with on offense.
Nope.
Jake, let's bring you into this. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I expect the Panthers to win this one fairly easily. I think it's gonna be pretty tough for the Cardinals to go cross country. Third string quarterback. The Panthers have played really well down the stretch here in December. They're tough defensively. Uh, I respect Bruce Arians a lot. He's done a great job with that team this year, but I don't think they have the firepower on offense at all. They can hang out. They can hang with them on a defense, but I think Cam Newton's gonna have a big game. Jonathan Stewart could run all over them. So I say the Panthers probably win this one by 10 points.
Yeah. I actually like that, and that's kind of what I wanted to wait for. I definitely think Carolina's going to be patient. They got to know that you can stay to your game plan, especially with how hot and how brutal Jonathan Stewart's been running recently. I mean, they have to know they can be patient against this area. They do have cracks in that defense. It is a tough defense. It is one of the top, but there are cracks in it. Let's move on to the next game in the NFC, and this will be on Sunday at 4:40 is Lions and Cowboys. Um, Austin, I'll start with you on this one. Lions and Cowboys. This might be my favorite game of the NFC playoffs, and I think that there's going to be a lot that is going to be figured out in this game, and I think Tony Romo and the Cowboys have probably got this one locked up either way. How about you?
I think they do too. I mean, there's a lot of storylines in this game. You've got the Lions' number one ranked rushing defense versus the Cowboys. The best O line in football. Some say second best running attack in the league. I expect them to exploit that. I know Ndamukong Suh just won his appeal, and I would say without him, that makes it a lot easier game for the Cowboys. But I think they're going to have their way with that secondary. Tony Romo's been playing probably as good or better than Aaron Rodgers in the past few weeks. I know a lot of people have him as the MVP, but I expect them to give DeMarco Murray the ball. If the Lions decide to play one-on-one coverage against the Des Bryant, then I expect a couple touchdowns from him. And on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think Matt Stafford and that offense have really proved that they're as explosive as we thought they were. Golden Tate came on early in the season, but he's kind of disappeared, and the Cowboys' defense has gotten better. So I expect the Cowboys win, especially at home.
Yeah. What do you think on that, Jake? You agree? You disagree?
I'm gonna agree, but I'm not gonna say it's gonna be as easy for the Cowboys as people seem to think. It's just the trust I don't have in the Cowboys yet in the playoffs. Tony Romo hasn't. I need to see him have that big postseason performance. Plus, you got to respect the Detroit defense. They can get after you, especially with that front seven with Sue, Ziggy Ansah. It goes on, but when it comes down to it, I don't have the faith in Jim Caldwell to go on the road in the playoffs and come up with something to beat the Cowboys at home in that high-powered offense. I think the Lions have the offense to exploit the Cowboys defense, but when it comes down to it, I just don't think Jim Caldwell will be able to come up with the plays. Cowboys win.
Yeah, good call on that. I had similar thoughts about Caldwell myself after watching him try to coach in Indianapolis for a couple years. Luke, bring you in and let you clean this one up.
I'm going to state right at the top that I do think the Cowboys are going to win, but I am also going to go on record and say it's not going to be as close as you might think. The last time that Calvin Johnson faced off against the Cowboys, he caught 14 balls for 329 yards and a score. So that Cowboys defense is going to have just as difficult of a time stopping Megatron. But on the other side of the ball, you've got Tony Romo, you've got DeMarco Murray, and you've got Des Bryant, all arguably top 10, if not top 5 players at their position this year. And quite frankly, it comes down to the fact that Matthew Stafford, I think he's an underrated quarterback, but still on the road, he has a career record of 14-24. So Cowboys win this one.
Yeah, I can't give Stafford the win in this one. Although I do, you got Megatron, Reggie. He has a massive amount of weapons, but I don't think that. I mean, they're dangerous. The Lions are dangerous. I just don't think that they can do that for a full game against the Cowboys when basically they have proven, and everybody I think who's ever watched a football game has heard somebody recently say that the Cowboys have one of the top five lines in the NFL. But it's because they do, not because it's the cool thing to say. That's because they do, and when they run through the defense for the first half of the game, it's going to wear them down. I think the Cowboys actually take this one by at least a touchdown and probably 10. So that sets up a Seattle and Arizona return and a Green Bay and Dallas. We'll start with Seattle and Arizona in the divisional round, and we'll start with you, Jake. What are your thoughts on this one?
Right now, I think Seattle would roll over them, based off the fact that you got Ryan Lindley going into Seattle against that defense. They just physically punish you in the front seven, the secondary. They could probably blank the Cardinals at home. Russell Wilson he could stay home if he wanted to. I think the Cardinals would roll in that game. I mean, the
Yeah.
Seahawks would roll in that game. My bad.
Yeah. I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. Lucas, what do you think on that? You agree? I think that's kind of hard to disagree with, but
It's hard to disagree with, and I mean, I'm a big fan of stats, and in this case, numbers don't lie. Seahawks and Cardinals have played two times this season, combined score of 54-9.
yeah, it's rough. I won't. I can't give Arizona a buy on this one. Bruce Arians is a fantastic coach. Um, there's just too much on both sides of the ball, really, for Seattle, and there's not too often you talk about Seattle and their offense, but Marshawn Lynch seems to be coming into his own, and that's going to be a tough sell for anybody trying to tell you that Arizona's going to win that. Austin, you going to go against the grain, or you kind of agree with that Seattle's probably going to roll Arizona?
Yeah, I think it's impossible to go against the grain here. I mean, Seattle's at home. We all know how big their home field advantage is. You've seen the past two games against the Cardinals, and I think the big thing for them is the emergence of Paul Richardson on offense, the rookie out of Colorado. He's really added another dimension to their game. They're known as a power running team, but now they've got a weapon that they can send downfield, and Russell Wilson doesn't have to make up plays on the fly. They can stick to the structure of their offense. And then there's not much to talk about on defense. We've seen what they've done, and against an inept team like the Cardinals with Ryan Lindley at quarterback, I don't expect this game to be close at all.
Hmm. I agree. Yeah, that's going to be hard for them to win. They've proven that they can't really do much on offense. Obviously, we've spoken about that, but to go up into Seattle and expect to do it in one of the craziest environments in the NFL is probably way too much for even Bruce Arians to take care of. Cowboys at Packers divisional round. I actually like this game, but it has a potential to be a blowout. I think once you get Tony Romo and Dallas out of their dome, which is basically the case for just about anybody who does play in a dome. I can't let the Cowboys win this one. They're gonna they're having a storybook season, so to speak, but they'll win their first playoff game, but they won't win this one. Packers will roll them, I think, by 2 touchdowns. Lucas, what do you think about that? Is that fair, or is that underselling Tony Romo?
I think Tony Romo has been a bit undersold, but here, I mean, you had last Sunday Aaron Rodgers go down injured. Matt Flynn was in the game, but Rodgers came back to win ultimately the game, the division, the first round bye, and probably the MVP award.
Hmm.
He was just so dominant. I can't go against that. I think the Packers, their defense is definitely improved this year, and they're going to put it together at home against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think once you take Tony out of the dome, that's a lot to ask, and there's no telling what the weather's going to be like in a couple weeks up there. Um, Jake, you're you're gonna tell me that Tony can play outside and so can Dez, right? In 20 mile an hour winds and 20 degrees in Lambeau, or no? Jake, you with us? Okay, Austin, how about you?
Yeah, I think Tony Romo can play out. I wouldn't expect him to put the game on his back. I know they ask a lot of Tony Romo, but they've got that offensive line. They've got DeMarco Murray. They've got Randall. They've got a nice crop of running backs. And if the Packers do have one weakness on defense, it's that run defense. I expect them to pound the ball. I expect the Packers to win this game, but I don't think it's going to be that sort of a blowout. Now, the Cowboys defense, it's iffy. They play up to opponents. You know, we saw them beat the Saints, a very aerial attacking team, but we've also seen them, lose to the Redskins and get crushed by the Niners at the beginning of the season. So we don't know what to expect, but I expect this to be a close game just because I think Dallas's running game can keep them in this.
Hmm. I think that's a good point. It's also possible that Dallas continues their road streak and goes completely undefeated on the road. Um, so that would ultimately bring us to Seattle and Green Bay for for the conference championship. This is a toughie because it's going to be in Seattle. I If there's anybody I think in the NFC that can go to Seattle and win, I think it's Aaron Rodgers, and it's not going to be because he's Aaron Rodgers and he's just fantastic. I'm not going to give you the fanboy, but I there's something about Rodgers who can go just about anywhere and finish a game in just about any environment. He may throw a pick, he may throw two picks, but I got to believe that their defense can stand up enough to keep Seattle under 21 points, and I don't think you can keep Aaron Rodgers under three touchdowns in a monumental game like that. Jake, are you with us again yet? No. Well, I'll start with Austin on that. Austin, you you got one or the other on there?
Yeah, I mean, I look back at the first game of the season, and it's tough to take takeaways from that and say, Seattle's going to roll again. But I do think Seattle, with that defense, with the speed of their defense, I'd say they probably have the fastest linebackers in the league. They've got Sherman, they've got Chancellor, they've got Earl Thomas, best safety in the league, arguably. We've seen the Packers get shut down by teams who play tough man coverage. The Buffalo Bills, they have a pretty underrated secondary, and they went into or they played Green Bay and completely shut Aaron Rodgers down. So I expect the Seahawks to come away with a win, but it's not going to be the blowout that we saw at the beginning of the season.
Right.
I trust Aaron Rodgers, but I trust that Seattle defense more right now.
Hmm. That's easy to say. Luke, how about you? You all in on Seattle, or I can't? I just can't give it to Seattle again this year. I got to go somewhere else.
I mean,
Luke.
it's hard to give it to Seattle again, especially as a Broncos supporter myself. Um,
Right.
but Seattle has proven themselves this year. I mean, obviously these two teams met week one. It wasn't even close at the time.
Hmm.
The Seahawks just rolled over the Packers. Now, Aaron Rodgers has, I think, a better set of weapons than the Seahawks can match. I mean, you look at his three deep. You have Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and the rookie Devontae Adams. They all look great. I think that
Hmm.
Adams is more than a matchup for any nickel corner that Seattle can put out there. But for me, what it comes down to is that Seattle defensive line is just so ferocious. If they can get after Rodgers, they'll have some success. He's just so elusive in the pot. Man, I could go absolutely either way on this, but they say defense wins championships, so give me the Seahawks on a last second win.
Hmm. The Seahawks will win. Okay. Well, I think we got two for that, right, Austin? That's what you said was the Seahawks, correct?
Yeah, I say Seahawks. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we're not going to get away from the norm then, because two beats one, and I can't get Seattle in the title game this year. I can't get them in the Super Bowl. I don't want to see them in the Super Bowl. But it happens. It's more than likely the way that things are going to turn out as anyhow. Um, Anyways, it's a fantastic. This NFC playoff is going to be fantastic because there really are several teams in here that could be bad matchups for any of the other teams, which makes this a very, very hard to predict uh, year for the playoffs, especially the defense that you see in the NFC with almost all of them playing good. Packers playing better, Dallas playing efficient at least while they are on the field. Seattle locked down as ever. Carolina's been better the last 3-4 weeks. Arizona's still good, and the Lions are one of the best in the NFL, if not the best in the NFL. So there are going to be a lot of offensive guys that are going to struggle in this playoffs, and it could really change the tide. We could very well see Arizona, who is awful right now on offense, pull it out of nowhere. So, once again, and as always, visit Pro Football Spot. It's a forum-based website created to keep you, the football fan, informed. Come there, follow our writers, get on there and start a forum. Any questions, everybody's more than happy to help and more than happy to engage in the conversation that you want to engage in. Sign up for free, no cost, just a lot of good articles and a lot of good people to bounce your knowledge off of. I'd like to thank Luke Paglaz, Jake Mackey, and Austin Belial for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. You can catch Austin on Twitter at Austin C. Belisle. He is a journalist for Pro Football Spot for the Spot Vikings. Luke is the AFC West Division Manager for Pro Football Spot, and you can catch him at Luke Poglaz on Twitter as well. Jake Mackey, who was with us earlier, you can catch him at Mackey_Jake. He's writing for our Patriots. And thank you for joining us, Luke, Austin. I appreciate you guys being on the show, and we'll see how everything turns out.